Verity.
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 It's Verity. Brought to you by Prodigy.
Hello, hi, and assalamualaikum everyone. Okay, so introducing myself to you, I am Amanina Afrika from IPRMSA's podcast. Please count on for today's podcast with me as we will discover interesting topics to talk about that might be something for you to use in the future. Who knows, right? Okay, so therefore, whether you are a public relations student, an intern, or someone who is just starting to work, buckle up to listen to this podcast that might help you live your life at work. You must be wondering what are the things that I am going to discuss today, right? Drum roll, please! Okay, so for today's topic, I will be talking about the taboo in the forest. Wait. What are the relations with the PR? Okay, so this is why you should listen to this podcast to the end to find out what you need to know as a public relation practitioner. So, before we start, I would like to ask, who among you likes to hear old stories or tell tales from older people? Even if you guys don't like it, I bet you guys have heard old stories from older people before, even once in your life. Most of the stories we hear from older people, sometimes it feels like, no, this story is so ridiculous. Mengarut lah. But believe me, some of the stories that they tell actually have their own values and lessons. And from there, we try to apply the goodness of the story into our daily life. And this also includes the topic that we will discover today, that is the taboo in the forest. You know, all the people we call it like pantang larang. We always hear from our parents or maybe word of mouth that the forest is a sacred place. We also know that humans are not the only creatures living in this world. There are any other supernatural things that also exist with us in this world, and the forest is one of the relics of these beings. So let's take a look at some of the taboos that the ancients advise on us if we enter the forest, as well as what it has to do with the world of PR. Taboo #1. Maintaining manners in the forest. Maintaining good manners is actually a very basic thing in life when you enter a new place that does not belong to you. Most people know that maintaining good manners when we go into the forest is a very basic thing that we need to know. Among the taboos and manners in the forest is not to pee in any places, throw garbage, and spit at will no matter the place. According to the ancients, among the places that we need to be extra careful are the puddles of water, holes found in the forest, the middle of the forest road, and a sudden clean areas found in the forest. Why? The reason is because the place is usually where the other creatures live. This can be defined as when we enter someone else's house. We have to take care of our behavior. Okay, so try to imagine that if in someone else's house, we show our bad behavior, we might be chased away by the owner. In the forest, the situation will not be much different. If we do not maintain good manners in the forest, the occupants or owner of the forest will definitely be angry. The perpetrator may be lost or hidden by the creature that is the owner of the forest. It is actually up to us whether we want to believe it or not, but as a Muslim, we already learned that other beings also live in this world. So it is not impossible, right, that these mystical things might happen to us. So we can take example and lesson from the news that once shocked the people in Malaysia when a man went missing at Gua Tempurong, Gopeng Perak. So the man known as Achap went missing while attending a running event on March 23, 2019. So various efforts were made for more than a year, and various speculations arose from the public. When the man is rediscovered, he recounts on how he has actually followed another creature, goblin, to live in their world. So for orang Melayu, we usually call it orang bunian. If you guys are interested in this case, you guys can read or watch the video about the chronology of the case and the interview with Achap on YouTube to find out more. So here it is concluded that the advice of the ancient people for us to maintain manners in the place of other people is very important to ensure safety can be maintained. This can also be linked to being a PR practitioner. Okay, so why did I say so? Actually, being a PR, not only we need to think about ourselves, but also about our company. Ethics is something that needs to be emphasized by a PR person, and especially if it is a matter that involves other parties, such as the media, the government, the investor, and the public. Imagine if a PR person does not maintain their ethics and manners when dealing with the groups I mentioned earlier. Obviously, there will be problems that arise, and it will convince the other parties that we, as a PR people, do not have the credibility. And in turn, it will tarnish the image of ourselves and our company. Because of that, ethics is the cornerstone of a PR success in carrying out their work no matter where or with whom they deal. Taboo #2. Maintain tone and language while in the forest. The next thing that was also advised by the ancients was we should be careful of our speech and also our tone when in the forest. Let's see one by one about what they always say. So first, don't mention negative things like cursing or insulting while in the forest. For example, the negative things that someone usually talk while in the forest are like, why this forest kinda eerie, so seram lah. Or maybe like, this forest is so bad lah, so ugly, so got smell, so smelly lah, cannot stand. Okay, so all this word, if often taught and spoken, will disturb our minds and mental, thus causing us to feel like what we just said. And of course, the owner will also not like those words because we barge into and insult their place. Next, the second one is don't call a friend's name when in the forest. The older people always advise while walking in the forest, whether we have just entered the forest or maybe we want to go home from the forest, we should not call a friend's name. This is because it is feared that the other creatures will respond or call our friend's name as if we are the one who is calling our friend, or maybe vice versa. So, preferably, they advise that we give nicknames to our friends when entering the forest. For example, maybe like, hey, coach, where do you want to go? Or, Victoria's Secret, can you accompany me here? Or maybe, Maybelline, can you walk a little faster, please? Like that. It's fun, plus we can be more careful while in the forest. To the third message that once given is that if walking in a group, don't shout or have too much fun. Okay, so common sense and logic thinking. Who would love it if a stranger entered our house then made so much noise? Definitely no one, right? That's why they advise us to keep our intonation while in the forest. So all of these prohibitions can be attributed to being a PR practitioner as well, where you always have to be careful with what is said by your mouth. Things that want to come out from your mouth should be planned in advance, especially if it is to be addressed to other parties such as the government, the media, the public, the investor, like that. As the saying goes, a word spoken is past recalling. Or orang Melayu, we call it as telajak perahu boleh diundur, telajak kata buruk padanya. Taboo #3. Make early planning and preparation. Actually, this is more of tips before you want to enter the forest because various unwanted things may happen. A member of the Kuala Lumpur Mountain People Club, OKGKL, named Abdul Wahab Dawood, said, "Every adventurous hiker who enters the forest to do their activities must make a list of items to bring according to the needs of the activity and the number of days they are going to stay in the forest." The man who wants to be called as Abah has extensive experience and has been in the forest since he was a teenager. And according to Abah, anyone who intends to enter the forest needs to make some preparations mentally and physically and should ask people who are familiar with this extreme activity. For him, someone who wants to enter the forest should first ask the OG or the expert about the forest so that they can prepare themselves a little bit. In addition, among the advice given when entering the forest is to bring a machete, salt, and matches. A machete can be used as a weapon for protection or equipment to find food. Salt as a source of iodine, while matches are needed to light fires and to cook. What can be learned from the tips given is to prepare yourself by making initial preparation so that the physical and mental self can be strengthened before doing something. It can be related to PR because, as we know, to be a PR, we need to prepare ourselves before going through any situation. For example, a crisis that occurs in a company should have been anticipated by a PR, and they should have made a plan from the beginning to face or resolve the crisis. Not only that, PR also needs to prepare mentally and physically during a crisis because it has to deal with the media, the investors, and any other parties involved. Crisis is something that cannot be avoided. Therefore, before doing anything, PR should have been able to guess about the ability of a crisis to emerge. By speculating on the crisis situation, PR should continue to think and make initial preparations on ways to deal with the crisis. So due to the short time we have, only those 3 taboos are the only points that I can tell today, even though there are many other taboos about the forest that I haven't had time to talk about. Some other things that I can advise about the forest other than what was said earlier is, firstly, do not take anything weird or beautiful, for example, sparkling beautiful stones and others, if you come across them, because the thing may belong to the creatures that live in the forest and they may be angry because they think you are stealing it. Also, if you come across an area that has long roads and dangles to form like a swing, do not play in the area because it may be a playground for other creatures that live in the forest. There are many other things, but so far this is all for our discussion on today's podcast. Although considered mystical and perhaps absurd, if we want to compare it with the modern world today, we still cannot take lightly the tips to enter the forest and taboo in the forest. We must respect the area as the place is visited by us without us knowing about the existence of the other creatures that own the place. In addition, we should also not forget to make self-protection by reciting prayers before embarking on the journey into the forest to prevent bad things from happening, and also recite the prayers after coming out from the forest so that no bad things follows us home. We have almost reached the closing for this podcast, but a little opinion from me is that I feel that PR is a field of work that is very easy to relate to our daily life. Various things can be associated with working as a PR, and Taboo in the Forest is just one of them. I am sure that in every topic that is talked about or focused on, it will be related to PR. Ethics and principles of PR is a basic thing, and it can also be used in life to deal with any situation that occurs. So that's all for our topic today. I hope from the podcast of the day you all get a little bit of bar knowledge and have interesting topics that can grab your attention. I put together 10 fingers to apologize for all the shortcomings and mistakes I have done throughout the podcast. I hope that you don't get tired of listening to podcast from me again after this. So see you in another day. Thank you. Bye-bye. Stay safe and love you all. Bye.